Listener supported. WNYC Studios.
This week on Notes from America, a conversation with Oscar-nominated filmmaker Raoul Peck. His latest documentary chronicles the story of a black family struggle to keep the land they've owned since emancipation. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. Maybe one of your New Year's goals is to cook more, which sounds doable until you get home from work and can't face an hour in the kitchen. Cookbook author Ali Rosen is here to help with her cookbook, 15-Minute Meals, truly quick recipes that don't taste like shortcuts. As she writes, the truth of the matter is that sometimes a 15-minute recipe is the only thing stopping us from eating ice cream for dinner again. Her book is big on flavor, with recipes for one-pan pastas, spicy rice bowls, and even dessert. The cookbook is out January 9th, and Ali Rosen joins me in studio. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for having me and following a library segment. I feel like I'm in my happy place.
Listeners, Ali is taking your calls. What questions do you have about tips and tricks for making a quick meal, or maybe you have a 15-minute meal you want to recommend to your fellow public radio listeners? Our phone lines are open, 212-433-WNYC, 212-433-9692. You can call in, join us on air, or you can text to us at that number. So people might be thinking, is this 15 minutes total, or is like prep time and then 15 minutes? What do you mean when you say 15-minute meals?
I mean 15 minutes start to finish. I wrote the recipes in a very different way than I've ever written recipes before, which is there's no like 1 cup of chopped onions as an ingredient. I wanted it to really start as this whole thing start to finish will take 15 minutes completely. So if there's chopping a cucumber in there, that's actually written into the recipe. And so for me, there's a lot of recipes that I've seen where it's like, it's 10 minutes of prep and then you stick it in the oven for an hour. And isn't that so easy? And it's like, that is easy, but I have to preheat my oven and then I have to wait an hour for it to go. So sometimes you have time for that and sometimes you don't. So this is really start to finish 15 minutes total.
What are some of the ingredients that should be in the pantry when you're looking to cook quickly and with a lot of flavor? That's something I thought that was really interesting in your book, the idea that maybe you invest in really good ingredients and that can move the process along.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really living in this golden age of ingredients. I mean, no matter where you live, but especially for listeners in New York City, I mean, you can get high quality tamarind paste, gochujang, miso paste. We have access to so many ingredients that are really there to just add a ton of flavor without doing a lot of work. And I think that that's huge. The other thing is to kind of like look at what things you love and maybe like take the easier version of it. So, okay, you love chicken. Like cook with ground chicken instead of a whole chicken thigh. Like maybe it's not the exact same texture that you want, but if it allows you to cook something as opposed to ordering in again, like take the win and have it be slightly less texturally delightful for you.
I was going to ask about meat. People are thinking 15 minutes and meat.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you suggest that we cook different meats safely in 15 minutes? Like what are examples? Ground chicken was one.
Yeah, I mean, ground meat is good. Cutting things up, you know, like if you're going to have chicken thighs, like cut them into pieces rather than cooking them all in one place. You might spend 3 to 4 extra minutes cutting it, but you will spend less time when you're actually cooking it. Thin fish is also great under a broiler. You know, I just recommend using your broiler way more than people do anyway. And then also, you know, sausages, you know, which are a lot of which are pre-cooked, and you can now get sort of healthier versions like chicken sausages. So, I mean, it's finding those things that are faster, and everything doesn't have to be like a giant hunk of meat to get protein.
Let's talk to Craig from Morganville, New Jersey, who has a question for you, Ali. Hi, Craig.
Hey, how you doing? I can somewhat cook a main dish, but the problem is my timing is horrible.
Right.
Like the main dish and the sides that I have to do. And my wife's like, okay, you got the main dish. What about the vegetables? What are the kids going to eat? I'm like, it's coming up in 10 minutes. You know, it's how do I do that?
I think that the biggest thing is to take the shortcuts that are available to you. So I love pre-cooked or frozen rice. You know, I love polenta rolls, which people don't use a lot of, where you can literally just slice polenta. I love really quick cooking grains. You know, fonio is a grain that cooks in 5 minutes and is super easy. Couscous is another one. And then it's get vegetables that need no prep. You know, like instead of buying broccoli that you need to fully cut, either buy pre-cut broccoli or just buy something like snap peas where you can throw it in without prepping. So, I mean, it's really like finding the things that take time out of that system. And again, yeah, like don't leave you sort of standing there like, oh my God, what do I do next? And how do I get all of this timed correctly? In my book, I mean, every meal is a meal. It's not like, here's chicken and then hope you can figure out the rest of it. You know, it's like if we have a thing for chicken thighs, it's also going to have chickpeas and cashews and cucumber in there. And all of those are super easy.
We've got a text that says ground turkey and a can of beans and a can of tomatoes. So easy and nutritious.
Chili perfection.
Talking about cans, you talked about frozen, canned, jar goods. You don't have to sacrifice quality or taste, but can you guide people towards what to look for so that you know you are getting something that is good quality and also healthy?
Definitely. I mean, within that golden age of ingredients, it's also, you know, when I was growing up, canned things were like the worst version of it. Now you can get really high quality versions of things. You just have to look at the label. And honestly, the best way to look at labels is just, do you know everything that is in there? If you're looking at a can of beans and it says low sodium and it's just beans, water, and salt, great. If it has a bunch of ingredients where you don't know what it is, don't buy that. You know?
Right.
And I mean, it's the same thing with sort of tinned seafood. Look for, you know, there's great labels like MSC is a little like blue fish that will tell you that it's sustainably caught. And so just look at the ingredients in your canned goods because the quality has skyrocketed since I think a lot of us sort of imagined it from our childhoods of like, oh my God, the can of green beans, you know?
My guest is Ali Rosen. The name of the cookbook is 15-Minute Meals, Truly Quick Recipes That Don't Taste Like Shortcuts. It's out on January 9th. Before we get into some recipes, there's a suggestion you have about 4 items, the equipment that's actually worth investing in that can save time. Toaster oven, griddle pan, high-quality blender, and knife sharpener. So let's start with a knife sharpener because that's probably the most affordable for people right now.
Yeah.
How is a knife sharpener going to help save time?
It's funny because a sharp knife is a safe knife, and I think most people think the opposite. But you cannot cut things quickly if your knife is not sharp. And so we always let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? We think like, oh, I don't want to buy like an electric knife sharpener and ruin these beautiful knives that I haven't sharpened in 10 years. I mean, you're not going to ruin it. The amount of times you would have to sharpen a knife with an electric sharpener to have it fully like gear down the blade is immense. So just invest in like a $25 electric knife sharpener and use it once a week, once a month, and you will actually be able to cook so much faster because your knife can cut faster.
You also make the point that the griddle pan, it's one of those work smarter, not harder situations. Yes. How do I use a griddle pan to speed things up?
Well, I mean, a lot of like family cooking I find where it's like a recipe where it says like, oh, do all of this, you know, like move the meat and then add the vegetables into it because it won't be the size of the pan. I mean, a griddle pan is longer. The surface area is more. You can cook things faster if they're not all smushed together. So get a griddle pan that can go in the dishwasher for sure and, you know, fits the size of your dishwasher. But you just put it over 2 burners and then you have twice the space without having twice the dishes.
And the toaster oven, I realized what that was for. You can broil in some of these toaster ovens. For people who live in New York, maybe don't use their broiler or don't have a broiler.
Right.
Some of these fancy, not even fancy. They have a broiler in it. And what's so great about broiling?
Well, broiling just cooks things faster. I mean, it's basically like a reverse grill. You know, like we all love summertime grilling because it's that high heat, that flash, that char. I mean, all of those things add flavor. And a broiler is just kind of like the indoor reverse version of that. So yeah, if you have one of those, like not a toaster, but a toaster oven, you can cook, you can bake cookies. You can do, especially if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people. I mean, you can cook a whole chicken in a toaster oven.
Speaking of one person, we've got a text for you. Hi from the West Village. Can you ask Ali what hearty and healthy soup is easiest to make for one? You have a whole bunch of, there's a lot of soup in this book.
Yeah, soups I love because, the blender. I mean, you mentioned the blender. It's like the number of things you can just like stick in a blender. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to take ginger, which we all think is a huge pain because we have to peel it. But if you actually throw like ginger, garlic, and some coconut milk into a blender, blend it all up, then you don't really have to deal with the garlic and the ginger sort of in the difficult way that you would. And then you can add to that lentils or, again, ground meats. Ground chicken would be great. Whatever vegetables you have. I mean, that to me is just one of the easiest bases that feels like you're doing something special when actually you just threw a bunch of easy stuff in a blender.
What about lasagna soup? That is something that's intriguing. What's lasagna soup?
Lasagna soup is basically just the idea of I want to have these flavors, but I do not want to stick it in the oven. It's taking all those flavors, right? It's taking a little bit of creaminess. It's taking the lasagna noodles. Obviously, you're going to sort of crunch them up because you don't want super long noodles in a soup. You can add a meat to it or not, maybe a little bit of basil, some tomato sauce. And that you get all the flavors in a soup, but it doesn't take, you don't have to do the layering. You don't have to bake it. So 15 minutes instead of an hour and a half.
Let's talk about tahini lemon fish over charred kale, because you mentioned char. Yeah. What kind of fish would be good to use in this dish?
Yeah, a tilapia or something very thin and easy and inexpensive because it has a lot of flavor, so you don't need the flavor as much from the fish.
Flounder with pistachio pesto and couscous. I'm just going to keep throwing out recipes at you because
I love them. Yeah, pistachios, any nut is great for a pesto. We sort of think of pestos as having to be pine nuts. Pine nuts are very expensive, and so we always think this has to be a special occasion thing. But you can do a cashew pesto. You can do a pistachio pesto. And I say that 10 times fast, pistachio pesto. But it's, you find these little ways to add flavor to something that doesn't necessarily have to add a lot of time, but it adds flavor and it adds heft. Nuts fill you up. So pestos are great for that.
My guest is Ali Rosen. The name of her book is 15-Minute Meals, Truly Quick Recipes That Don't Taste Like Shortcuts. Do you have a question about making a quick meal, or maybe you have a 15-minute meal you'd like to share? Our phone lines are open, 212-433-9692, 212-433-WNYC. We have a call from Josh. It's a little bit off topic, but I think you can probably handle this. Hey, Josh, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thanks for taking it. Would love to know what you think the perfect kitchen configuration is for optimized cooking.
Ooh, I would say don't let other people tell you that you need certain appliances or certain things if you don't use them. I feel like everyone's wedding registry has a KitchenAid stand mixer on it. I personally use that a lot because I love cookies and I have a sweet tooth. But if you're not going to use that, don't. If you're not going to use a toaster, don't get it. Figure out what you would use and then organize yourself around that. I would also say drawer dividers can be the cheapest, easiest option to optimize your kitchen, because sometimes we are just shoving our hands through drawers, and that when you're in the middle of cooking something, you're I need a spatula. Where is my spatula? If you have dividers, I think that's huge. And a knife block.
A knife block?
Yeah, because if your knives get disorganized, again, back to keeping them sharp. It's it saves you time.
Organization saves you time.
Organization saves a lot of time.
Rice bowls, big fast casual trend all over the city, the country. You can put your add-ins, et cetera, et cetera. What's a good rice bowl that I could make at home? Because they can get very spendy.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. I think that, again, using canned fish is a great thing. Any canned fish, a salmon, a tuna, and then a hot sauce of any kind, a sriracha or a Frank's hot sauce or a gochujang. And then adding something with a little bit of acidity to it. So pickles or cornichons. And then again, whatever vegetables you have around the house is great. I also think frozen vegetables work great on rice bowls too. Buy those multi-packs of frozen whatever and then throw that in the skillet for 5 minutes with some lemon and then top it with whatever protein you want, or no protein if you don't eat meat. And it's super simple. I also, one of the things I do in the book is mix and match. So things that you would do a taco for are also great on rice bowls. And one of my favorite is a kimchi beef rice bowl, because kimchi adds so much flavor, is inexpensive because it's cabbage, and you don't have to do a lot with it, and it adds crunch as well. So, I think rice bowls are a great conduit, but you don't need 25 ingredients, because that's where it starts to be well, why am I not just ordering out if I just spent $30 at home?
Let's talk to Lee from Cobble Hill. Hey, Lee, thanks for calling in.
Hi. This has been so much fun to listen to as I'm making my first grocery list for the new year. I just wanted to share one of my favorite New York City apartment-friendly single-person dinners, which is perfect for winter too, and it takes 15 minutes. I just chop up a bunch of white mushrooms or button mushrooms, or even buy them pre-sliced, and then saute them and in some garlic and olive oil. And then at the last minute, I add a dollop of Greek yogurt or creme fraiche, and then I put it over really crusty bread. And it's just really yummy mushroom toast. And I make 2, and it's very hearty. And you can also add an egg.
There's a recipe in the book for a mushroom toast over ricotta. So like same idea, like the umami of the mushrooms, the creaminess of ricotta or yogurt, and then the crunchiness of the bread. And yeah, it's a whole meal. Like you don't have to do that much. You could also put that over a rice bowl.
I have strong feelings about anchovies, meaning that I love them.
Yeah, okay, good. I was like, oh no.
No.
Good.
What's a great anchovy recipe?
Well, I think anchovies like the secret that you just like throw into anything, right? It's also great. I mean, we were talking about pistachios. I mean, if you do like pistachios and anchovies, like with some olive oil and then just put that over a pasta, like that's a great sauce, But it's also good, like throw it into any sauce you have. And people who are like, I hate anchovies will suddenly be like, ooh, why is this so flavorful? And you're like, haha, it was the anchovy. So like it doesn't have to taste like anchovies. Anchovies.
What do you think is the recipe in this book that people would be surprised only takes 15 minutes?
There's a lamb chops with couscous and olives, and people are always like, you can't do that in 15 minutes. And again, I mean, I sound like a broiler fanatic, but it's like you can with the broiler. And if you just, again, like speaking of yogurt, I mean, you put a little bit of yogurt or mayo or something that sort of keeps the moisture in, you can really blast it with heat and still keep it pink and moist inside. So yeah, people are sort of shocked by the meat things that you can do quickly.
Let's talk about dessert. We might as well,
yeah.
Right? Because people think homemade desserts are going to take a long period of time. I saw this one. This is another favorite of mine. It's like you wrote this book for me. I love key lime pie, but you have a key lime cookie sandwich.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, that's, my sister is also like a key lime pie fanatic. So I love that flavor of the curd, but I'm like, I don't want to bake it. I don't want to. So, you can get those like Maria Digestives cookies, which you can find at any bodega, and they're perfect. But also, even if you can't find those, like a graham cracker, whatever you have, and you just make that, curd super simply, put them between the cookies, and then it's like you made something, but you didn't have to make the crust. So, and everybody loves a cookie.
What about for our chocoholics out there? I didn't mean to hijack the dessert segment portion of this program.
Right. Well, my favorite is there's a s'more, like ice cream s'more sandwich, which was really funny. I test recipes. My friends always come over and I'm like, let me test this. And it was really one of the ones where it was like, oh, absolutely no notes. It's like you take chocolate ice cream, you put some marshmallows like in the toaster oven, which again broils them. I sound like a broken record. And then, between two graham crackers, and it's like, it's hot and cold. It's super easy. And again, like you don't have to take it outside. It's kind of s'mores in a box.
We have time for you to highlight one more recipe. Which one? Dealer's choice.
Ooh, well, I would say the, poached shrimp with feta, which I think is what's going on your website, is one of my favorites because again, it's like, it's sort of stewy, it's delicious, it's easy, and it's flavors that you may not necessarily associate with being quick, but shrimp is quick. Feta adds a ton of flavor without having to do a lot. Olives add a lot of flavor without having to do a lot. So that's one that I kind of go back to over and over.
And thank you so much for letting us put that on our website.
Oh my God, my pleasure.
The name of the cookbook is 15-Minute Meals, truly quick recipes that don't taste like shortcuts. It will be out on January 9th. My guest has been Ali Rosen. Ali, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's more All of It tomorrow, not today. It's the end of the show, right, Juliana? Yeah, it's the end of the show. I'm Allison Stewart. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you. And I'll meet back here next time, I promise. I'll be here. Got confused.